Welcome back. This is lesson 2.6 journal. We are estimating quotients. I will be able to correctly estimate fraction division by using compatible numbers. I will also attend to precision and make sure that I round up or down according to the context. Okay, just a quick vocabulary review. A fraction is part out of a whole. Numerator is the top part of the fraction. Denominator is the bottom number on the fraction. Equivalent fractions are equal to each other but have different numerators and denominators. Improper fraction. The improper fraction has a numerator larger than the denominator. A mixed number is a whole number and a fraction put together. Compatible numbers, we learned about this in chapter 1. When you're estimating division, we like to round the divisor first and then pick something that the divisor will go into nicely. And then unit fractions are fractions that have 1 for a numerator, like 1/2 or 1/3 or 1/5. Alright, let's look at this example. Allie is going on a 57 3/4 mile, that should say mile in there, mile backpacking trip for 6 days. If she plans on hiking the same amount each day, about how far will she hike each day? So, I want you to think about this. What do we have? We have a total. And we're trying to split it into 6 equal groups. So we're dividing by the groups to figure out the size. We want to know how much she's going to hike each day. So now this is one of those questions where after we set it up, we want to decide, would this be one better to round up or to round down? Our divisor is 6. That's a nice number to work with. Now I want something that 6 will go into that is close to 57 3/4. Now I want to decide, is this something I would rather overestimate or underestimate? If I overestimate, then I'm going to plan on hiking farther each day, but in the end that would make it, if it's less, if I'm over, that would mean that the last day that I might not have to hike as far. But if I underestimate, I might have a lot of extra miles to go on that last day to finish the whole hike. So in this case, I would rather overestimate because I would rather not have a bunch of extra miles left over. So 6 goes into something close to 57 3/4. That's pretty close to 60, and that would be an overestimate, so that would make me happy if I was the one doing the hiking. I'd rather hike a little bit more each day than find out I have a bunch of extra miles left. So 60 divided by 6 is 10. So about 10 miles every day. Okay, this one says each batch of cookies requires 2 1/3 cups of flour. About how many batches of cookies can he bake? So we have a total amount of flour, and we know how much it takes to make each group. So this is going to be divided by the size of each group. I want to know how many we can make. So how many groups or batches of cookies can we make? So 15 1/3 divided into groups that are 2 1/3 size. Now for estimation's sake, we want to find compatible numbers, but we first round the divisor. Well, 2 1/3, 1/3 is closer to 0 than it is to 1, so I'm going to say about 2. And now, if I'm making cookies, would I rather have leftover extra cookies, or would I rather have all of it used up? In this case, overestimating or underestimating probably doesn't matter, but me personally, I'd rather underestimate so that I have extra cookies left over instead of planning on enough just to find out I don't have enough cookies for whatever I'm making them for. So here, 15 1/3, if underestimating would be more useful, I might route this down to something that 2 will go into. So 15 is probably closer to 16, but since I probably want to make sure I have enough cookies for whatever I'm doing, if I round down, underestimate will help me make sure that I will have some leftovers. I'd rather be safe than sorry and have extra cookies, so I'm rounding down to 14. So 14 divided by 2, I know I can make 7 batches carefully. So if I'm signing up for the book or the bake sale, and I know I can promise 7 batches of cookies. I have plenty to make 7 batches. If I round up, that would give me 16. I don't know if I'd have 8, so if I promised that I'd make 8 and then I find out I don't have enough flour, I wouldn't follow through. So that's why on this personal one, I would underestimate. Alright, now let's talk about estimating with unit fractions. So, unit fraction divisors specifically. Okay, this is going to be a little bit different. Up here, we just rounded to the nearest whole number. With the unit fraction divisors, is your pieces are a lot smaller. They're not near whole numbers. If I were to round 1/5 to the nearest whole number, I'd round it down to 0, and then I can't divide by 0. So let's see how this works out. Okay, this one says, Eliana has 3 1/4 yards of ribbon. She needs 1/5 yard pieces for her craft project. So we're starting with a total. And then I am breaking them into the size pieces I want. So we're dividing them by size. Now in this case, would I rather have extra ribbon pieces left over, or would I rather overestimate and use up all my ribbon? To make sure I have enough for my craft project, I think I'd rather underestimate. So 3 1/4 divided by 1/5. Into groups of 1/5, if I took 1 and divided it into groups of 1/5, let me draw a picture of what that would look like. 1 whole divided into 1/5 size pieces. So I've divided this into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, and in each group I want 1/5. So that would be a group, that would be a group, there, there, and there. How many groups am I able to make out of 1 whole? 5. Well, look at that. The cool thing about unit fractions like this is I can just multiply this number by my divisor to get my answer, because it's going to take that many pieces to make up 1 whole unit. So over here, I'm going to keep my divisor 1/5. Now I just want to make something that's easy for me to multiply by 5. So I'm going to underestimate and say this is close to 3 yards. So if I do 3 times 5, that means I would be able to make 15 pieces. Now I underestimated. One reason, because that 3 is closer than 4, but also I'd rather make sure I have enough ribbon to make my project than to overestimate and find out I really didn't. So she would be able to make about 15 pieces. Okay, let's look at this one. Thomas has 1 5/8 gallons of water. His horse requires 1/6 of a barrel each day. About how many days can he water his horse? So once again, I have a total, and I know his horse requires 1/6 of a barrel each day. So I need to divide it into the size that the horse drinks each day. That means I'm looking for the groups, or how many days I can water the horse. So the original problem would look like this: 1 5/8 divided by 1/6. Now we have a beautiful unit fraction. So I know that it takes 6 pieces to make up 1 whole unit. Well, I want something that, if I just round this up to 2, think about that horse. If I overestimate how much water I have for my horse, let's say I'm going on vacation and I'm not going to be there to water my horse every day. So if I overestimate, then I'm planning on not by overestimating, I might not have enough water to water the horse. So underestimating would be a smarter choice in this case. Now also, because 1/6 is so small, I can make 6 pieces out of one whole unit. I'm going to round this to something that's easy to work with, like 1 1/2. If I just round it down to 1, then I'm missing out on all that I could do with this almost over half of a gallon, right? So I'm going to estimate here. I know that it'll take 6 pieces to make the whole unit, plus half of 6 is 3. So do you see my whole? There's 6 pieces in one whole unit, and 3 pieces in half of a unit if I'm cutting them into 6. So I could expect to water the horse for about 9 days. But now if I estimated down like this, I'm expecting about 9 days. But since I rounded down, there should be a little bit of water left over for the horse if I plan on those 9 days. All right, so here it says, how can you determine if it would be better in a context, meaning in a story problem or in real life, to round up or down for estimating? Well, it is better to round down if you would rather have extra. If you want extra left over. Like I would be happy if I had extra water 2 days ago. So that would make it better to round up. So it is better to round up. If you don't want leftover. Amounts. Okay, so what do you notice about dividing by a unit fraction? Well, when I divided 1 by 1/5, we decided that was the same as multiplying the dividend by the denominator of the unit fraction. So let's write that down. When dividing by, so it's important that the divisor is the unit fraction. When dividing by unit fraction, I can't seem to write today, fraction divisors, you can multiply the dividend, meaning the one that you're dividing, by the denominator of the divisor. So like up here we took the dividend and we multiplied it by 5. Here we took 1 1/2 and we multiplied it by 6. Alright, now it says use what you know about estimation with unit fraction divisors to do the following problem. Eugene has 4 1/5 cups of sugar. Each cupcake takes 2/15 cups of sugar. About how many cupcakes can Eugene make? So we have a total. All the sugar he has of cupcakes. So we're looking for the number of groups we can make, or how many cupcakes. So 4 1/5 divide by 2/15. Okay, we're dealing with a fraction that is way smaller than 1. So rounding it to 0 is not going to be useful because I can't divide by 0. So this is where we'll use unit fractions. So if I can come up with a unit fraction that this is close to, it will make my estimation easy. Okay, 2/15 doesn't reduce, but if I just go up slightly to 3/15, if I estimate this to be 3/15, well that's the same as 1/5. There's a unit fraction I can work with. So 4 And then if that's the case, I'm going to round this to 4. I'd rather underestimate so I can make enough cupcakes. So 4 divided by 1/5. Okay, for my estimation, remember we can times the dividend by the denominator of the fraction and the divisor if it's a unit fraction. So that would be equal to 4 times 5, which is about 20. So he can expect to make about 20 cupcakes. By rounding down, then he can promise he can make 20 for sure. But if he rounded up, he might be overestimating and not be able to make enough. Alright, so rate yourself on this concept. Do you feel you're a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, meaning I could teach somebody else? Okay, put this on your Google Classroom in your picture.